Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am Akshat Bahety and today we're going to talk about the newest code editor on the block, Kiro by Amazon. And I'm telling you, this will change the way you look at AI code editors, and I'm going to show you exactly how it stands up against Cursor or VS Code, right? So let's go ahead head to head and see what Kiro is all about and then come to it. But before I start, I just want to tell you, this is truly what agentic code editing should feel like. And let's get started so that you can actually see it in production. Okay, so as you can see here on the left hand side, I have the Kiro. This is the landing page. You can join the waiting list now and go ahead from there. But let's start from just making sure that we can use Kiro in the best way possible. So basically you have the basic, again, it's a VS Code 4. They're not trying to redo the editor, but there is some cool parts, they try to redesign the icons a bit, just a bit, right? Or maybe look them maybe a bit cooler. And then very simply you have a couple of projects that I have already. You can start with the open project. So I'm just going to select a random project. I'm just going to open from a new folder because I want to show you how does really look like. And I'm just going to say trust the authors, obviously. And then you have two options, which is something super cool. I'm telling you, just notice this, and I'm just going to zoom in. So you have vibe and you have spec, right? And I'm going to walk you through both of them. But let's start with the more important one, which is vibe coding, because why not? We are vibe coding all here. And I'm going to do a very simple task, right? Because again, I want to keep the demo fast and nimble on what we can try to create. So I'm going to start by saying very simply, start by create a beautiful portfolio for a financial analyst. And I'm going to create a beautiful portfolio website for the financial analyst. I'm using HTML, CS, and JS only. The best thing right now with Kiro is that it only has two models, which are the best models available for programming according to me, which is Claude Sonnet 4 and 3.7. But now if you see here, again, you can obviously go ahead and see the working part of it, and I think this is a bit hit and a miss when it starts creating, but it will automatically go ahead and create everything. Right? Again, I don't need to even start there. And this is not the only example I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you an example where I've been trying to build this for a whole day for a website completely on React.js and everything to test it out, and it just works beautifully, right? Again, and it has not asked for my inputs. I've just given it all access. Now if you see here, it's not done anything crazy, right? Okay, again, as you can see, this is done, but the point is the styles.css and everything else is still being done, and it's still going ahead and editing it itself. The one thing that they've implemented here very well is that it needs to really talk to itself, right? So it's automatically does this. I've rarely come back to Kiro on a project that I've been running since morning, right? Again, to build a website and everything, to come back. It's just literally once you give it access to your terminal and your agent, you are just your hands off. You don't need to click accept or something. And that's the whole idea that Amazon is trying to put here, that it does not need to be you come back to the terminal multiple times. It should be okay, you gave it access, you give it a task, kind of like what agents part is doing, but it can run locally, and they're trying to do that. And as you can see, I'm we are hands off here. So let's see how much time it takes to do this, but let's just I'm going to fast forward that part. Okay, now as you can see, it did this, and I'm again, obviously, every time I vibe code something and it does not come with a massive prompt, I want to actually see how it comes out. Okay, so there is obviously a small error here, it should not exist, but again, basically, we're going to let it be, right? Again, and go ahead and see that copy path, and let's bring it to the test of truth, right? Let's see, right? And again, okay, so now given that I haven't given any design part, we are not going to judge on the design because again, I have not given it anything. But it does not look bad, right? It does not look bad. It even added some micro interactions and everything else by itself. There is some part of the portfolio there, again, obviously the colors, kind of I don't know if it's supposed to be like this or again, it tried to do something fun, right? Again, but pretty cool. Again, and again, the goal is not to judge on design because our input was very, very poor, right? Again, very simply, you can just create a beautiful portfolio and they all look the same after a point. But this graph thing is pretty cool. Just to put that and figure out a way to do that. Now, that's one of the coolest things. I did not have to do anything, right? Again, I just told it you have access, go ahead and do stuff, right? And that's the whole idea. Obviously there is some you can see there are some errors, the about me section is over scrolling and again all of those things, but that's fine, right? We have those problems everywhere if you don't have a massive prompt which really explains what needs to be done. But let's try the same prompt in a new format, okay? And that's where you will see the difference here. Okay, so I'm just going to start with a new window, right, and click on this. So I want to select Kiro demo again, but I technically want to start with a new project. So you see the difference when you start a new project in a vibe mode and spec mode. So let's do that. Okay, so I've just opened a new project and now I'm going to select Spec and I'm going to use the same, exactly the same prompt that I did. And just to make sure that I don't even change anything with even the horrible spellings that I've written, I just come back here and paste the same prompt. Okay, and we're just going to spec it out and let's just see. And as you can see, I have autopilot on, which you can obviously switch off if you want to take back control and accept all of those things. But now it's going to go ahead and now technically create a spec document, right? And which again is a small thing, just to think about it. But you see, there is not only one, there are two, three options here that we are going to go step by step. Because I've done this for a couple of projects when I was testing this, this is probably one of those features that sets you apart by a small margin. Like a cursor will implement this, like if it flies off and everything, but just the idea that it's automatically going ahead and going to walk me through a journey, even if I'm not like a engineer, even if I'm an engineer and I have to go through this and I can automatically put all my documentation here and go through this automatically, is crazy. So again, we have the requirement documentation, right? Again, now obviously I'm not going to go through this right now. That's the whole point, right? And see what it does. Now it asks me for an input, which is to move to design phase, right? And then I'm just going to say this. I could have obviously edited the requirements here, changed the requirements here, and made something, right? And then it moves you to the design part. And these specs will be available here on the the Kiro option. You can obviously do a lot more, which I'll show it to you in a second, but let's just stick to this again. And again, if you go through the requirements, it actually does pretty good job, which is technically, yes, just AI going through a prompt and coming back, but also just the attention to detail that Amazon has been able to put kind of gives you that first option, yes, this can be a new editor that I would love to use more. And I do believe this might not be an option in the future. They might choose one of the options depending on what people use, because most people are coming to a coding editor to kind of spec out and then do this stuff rather than just do vibe coding. But also let's see, give the people that option and see how it works. It's a very early, it's quite literally in preview version, and if you don't get access to this, and right now it's completely free, the whole thing is completely free and you don't have to pay anything. So I just move it to implementation plan. It has obviously created a whole design doc available here with the website structure, the file structure, or the website structure, and then again given it some option the data structure of the portfolio and everything else. Amazon engineers have done a probably pretty good job testing this out with different kind of prompts and everything else. But coming back in, Kiro's pricing is going to be free for a decent amount of time, right? Again, during the preview period, which is pretty cool. Given that they could have charged $5 or something like that. I'm not doing that because they are going to make people move. They're pretty good things here, again, autopilot, and you can obviously do all the things. The best part is they are not trying to push your own model. Amazon is not trying to say, hey, here's our model. If you want to use this, use our model, because you want to bring out a change behavior, and this works. Okay, and one cool thing that I was able to do is if you see here, until this is happening, I was able to just import all my settings from VS Code, right? No matter what, if you are using it or not from Cursor, from VS Code. So it automatically is able to import everything because you have the settings, and that's why you see the theme and everything is a bit different than what you might get. I changed the default theme to again Kiro, so this will probably be the Kiro dark or something like that. Now, task list is there, so you have the implementation part. And now this is where the cool stuff happens. You can obviously click on start task, right? So you can select which task to execute. If you want to click, you can click on start task, and if I click on start task, it will start that particular task. But I'm just going to click on finalize a task list, and now it will go ahead and automatically start doing task by task. The point is it has automatically created its documentation, so it's really going to go ahead and say, okay, you know what, do this, do this, do this, something that you will have to do right now if you're vibe coding with Cursor or anything else, but now it just happens automatically. That's just a small point here. Okay, so I'm just going to make you watch through this, again the whole walkthrough, just I want to see the first task being executed. Okay, so now you can click on start task, and then very simply, as you can see, this is task in progress, right? And it is going to go ahead and start executing the commands. But the point is again, it actually needs to also access my terminal if it wants to create files, or it can automatically do it in here. Let's see what it happens. In the project that I was doing for using React, it obviously had needed access to my terminal and it asked for it. Let's see if it does here. It does not need to technically, but let's see. Okay, setting up the project structure, and as you can see, it really goes one by one on the part. I just wanted you to see the first part, and after that I'll just fast forward the other parts, because else this will be a massively long video. But if you have watched till here and you really like the content, please, it takes 1 second, like that video and subscribe to it. It helps me out a lot, and I would love to get your support. Okay, so it started creating the CSS file, right? So you have the CSS file available here. and then it's creating other CSS files and everything. So it's right now, I think like these are going to be, yes, obviously empty files, because the first task is just to set up the project structure. Now again, these are like, things that we already do while coding, like set up a project structure properly, set up the rules properly. That's just happening automatically from step one, which I don't need to figure out. Is just another cognitive load that's like, something that I can just focus on the building part of it rather than figuring out, okay, here is the best project structure, here's how it should be set up and everything else. And given that this is a portfolio website, it does not even need to be this crazy, but the reason that just it is pretty cool. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, it's going ahead and executing every one of them, and I think it's going to take roughly around 5 to 7 minutes to get this whole thing done. So I'm just going to fast forward this part. Okay, a quick thing here, like, again, it takes some time to like do tasks, but one quick part is like, it automatically selects the requirements also, right? So it has the requirement doc here, right? And based on the requirement doc here, it automatically has created task, and it also tells which requirements are specified using this. So we have a list of, right, roughly around 20 tasks, right? And every task is right now taking a minute or so. Should take some more time. Some tasks will obviously get done quicker, but also I think it's because of the amount of it is taken from Claude Sonnet 4, like just the responses and everything else that it has to write. But if you click on follow, you can then follow the files if required, if it's changing anything. Right now it's just going ahead and reading stuff, and then probably going to come back to it. And so yeah, let's like, it's going to take some time, and I'm just going to like, now I thought of like, fast forwarding this. I'm just going to pause and like, come back to it once all the tasks are done. Okay, so you can see me changed. Well, very simply, it's like I started this video yesterday, recording at night. Like again, it took 1 hour roughly to execute all the tasks, because I didn't want to like, make sure that like, let's see how the agentic part of Creo works. So it's like, again, it's there. Okay, so like again, it's not there yet, but I get the idea, and I'm going to walk you through it. Like, what are all the things that I did. So I need to start you here on tasks.md, right? So what they have done is that once you start the product, right, again, it creates its own task list, and these task lists have some level of, you can say, a small amount of UI. So you can click on viewing changes, and it will show you. Sometimes it's like a bit broken as a feature. It does not always show you. It shows you the execution though. Like, if I click on view execution, it can show every task that it's working on, and like, all the things that it did in the task. Very similar to like, going to a chat history, but kind of like you have like a UI built in a markdown file which works, right? So it's pretty cool. I get how they have done it and why also. But the output has not been great. Like if you see, I completed like around 15, 20 tasks, and it took a decent amount of time, because I think they're throttling the limits. I don't think it takes that much amount of time to do it, but it's like the responses were very slow. And I think that's because it's free. They want to make sure that's like, it's not abused as a tool, and somewhere around that. That's what I felt. Might be just like the load was high at that time for Sonnet or something like that. Okay, so if I copy this and show you, so it's not great. Okay, it does not look great, at least. So what you guys are seeing here is like, you can say, a very like, poorly done, like, portfolio. At least there is something like, again, it is all random stuff. Like some part of it is working, some part is not. The only good thing that I would say is that like, these images don't exist, right? So it actually created its images automatically, right? It went out and like, created the images automatically using base 64, which is a pretty cool thing. I don't know what this is, like, this quite literally, this head over this is not an error, right? So what you're seeing on the screen, the red box, this box here is like, if I inspect this, I actually will be able to see like, it's an error message. Something needs to be displayed here again. So probably still will get fixed, but again, not super great, right? But again, like not extremely bad, but like I'll say again, if you're just trying to vibe as an agent, this is probably a preview product. I think this will get 10 times better by the time they actually come to beta and launch this and everything else. But not bad, but also exactly not there. Again, I would have loved a decent portfolio very well. But like, let's like, again, what one thing that I want to show you on when you're using it is like, so if you see I have 3 tasks which need to be done. So I can click on retry, and then I can click on retry again and retry, and it actually moves like an agent, right? So it has like, task assigned, and you have a task in queue. So you can see which task it is working on, go to that current task and see that, right? And I think that's a pretty cool, nifty feature that, like, again, that can go ahead and instead of like, navigating through charts, you're actually navigating through tasks. And also just like the UI perspective of it is a bit cool, right? Again, like, comparatively. But I can honestly say, like, again, I can get used to this because I was using it in a couple of other projects also, right? Again, and it gives you that idea that you don't have to be there all the time. Like, you don't have to accept all. If you trust the agent and if you have a good rule set file, you can do that. Like, if you see in the file structure, I don't have a rule set file. I don't expect how the agent should work. But if you come here, it does ask you to, like, create like a steering dock, right? So you can generate a steering dock and generate a rules and everything. You can just click on that and generate also. But this should be like something like that already happens, right? It does have the specs, right? So that's pretty cool. You can add some hooks and smart triggers, which is some a cool feature that you can do, for example, create an agent hook. Like you can say, you can tell, okay, when I say this, like, so for example, updating documentation or writing documentation or something like that, all those features exist. And I believe that is a pretty cool thing. They are actually making us move towards a more agentic era, right? Again, when I say agentic era, it sounds like this crazy thing that is happening in future. It's already happening, but the point is, they're moving towards, okay, what does an agentic idea look like? And I think this is they've got it pretty close, and I think this is going to keep getting better. So I am honestly going to keep this as my primary ID for the next 30 days or so, and see how it works with other projects, the running projects and everything, and see. But I think with a couple of projects that I've tested, it is pretty good and it's pretty cool. And you can obviously add MCP servers, which is obviously a great thing that it's already built in from day one. They are not waiting for a beta to happen, and a lot of thought went into this. With that, one of the coolest features that I like is that I can just give it access to my terminal, right? So in one of these chats, it asked me, so let me just see if I can bring you guys. So the only thing is I do like this tab thing, but again, so it asked me to give me access to the command, and I just gave it, and it can then go ahead and access the terminal, see the review and everything. That happens in Cursor also quite some time, but this one just worked perfectly. I did not have to switch between a couple of things and everything. It knows that it's using PowerShell or CMD and just goes ahead and executes it. On Cursor, you always need to configure a bit more. But yeah, with that, I can honestly say Amazon has nailed it to a certain level, right? To a certain level. Why do I say to a certain level? Because very simply, their competition is pretty big, right? Their competition is very simply Cursor, which is which is the talk of the town. I love using Cursor style, but this is not an ID that we should say for comparative to Cursor or Windsurf. This is an ID which is built from day one for agentic AI ID, not for an AI code editor, which would be a wrong way to say this. This thing is built to really change the way we program and build and engineer stuff, and be like a complete co-pilot agent assistant with us, right? So I'm super excited to what happens. But if you like this video, I'm telling you guys, this took probably the longest video. Had to record that yesterday, again recording today. With that, I would love to request you to please like, share and subscribe to the channel. And if you are interested to talk to me more about stuff that you randomly want help on, go down to the links in the description and I will be able to help you with that. Till then, I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye-bye.